Hello, I am Ken Innes, and this is the McCune Rare Book Collection in Vallejo, California. Today we're going to take a look at a very unique book. It was printed in 1847 in London, England by the Chiswick Press. The official name of the book, as we can see from the title, is the first 6 books of the Elements of Euclid, in which colored diagrams and symbols are used instead of letters for the greater ease of learning. But it's most commonly called Byrne's Euclid because of the author Oliver Byrne. The reason this book is so unique is that the 1840s, full color printing was still in its infancy. And yet you can see this book is full of bright colors, blues, reds, and yellows. It was very expensive at that time and required great expertise to make a book of this type. And it was very time consuming. Here we have the book plate of the previous owner. This is the title page. There's a dedication to the Right Honorable Earl Fitzwilliam. And then we have an introductory section before it begins the actual 6 books of the Euclid. Oliver Byrne was many things: Irish mathematician, civil engineer, professor of mathematics, railroad surveyor, insurance actuary, author of many papers and books, inventor and proponent of Irish independence. He often thought outside the box. Once, as a railroad surveyor, when the Duke of Buckingham refused to allow him to survey that property for a railway route, Byrne obtained 2 identical ladders which he placed on opposite sides of Buckingham's fields. He then used these ladders to survey the land without actually walking the property. One constant in the life of Oliver Byrne seems to be his monetary problems. In 1839 he was jailed in debtor's prison for a £30 debt, and throughout his life he was in financial trouble and had to request aid from the Royal Literary Fund 15 times. He blamed his monetary troubles on his work for the railways when he obtained expensive surveying equipment, but when one of the railways failed, Byrne could not afford such equipment. Although appointed by the British government as Surveyor General for the Falkland Islands, Byrne never actually took up his position since he could not afford the passage, he owed his surveyor's wages, and he lost a lawsuit which put him into debtor's prison. He ultimately had to turn over the copyright to a number of his books, including Byrne's Euclid. Byrne's Euclid was remarkable in the use of cutting-edge technology with the color printing of the geometric images, combined with an old-fashioned Castellan type and the use of decorated capital initials and decorations in a textbook on geometry. The book was really a collaboration among Oliver Byrne, his publisher, William Pickering, and master printer Charles Whittingham the Younger of the Chiswick Press. William Pickering was the publisher and book designer. He is credited with originating the use of cloth binding for books. Pickering was also a collector and dealer in rare and antiquarian books. Luckily, Pickering found a friend and kindred spirit and printer Charles Whittingham the Younger. They worked together for almost 25 years. Both emphasized high-quality books with fine typography. Whittingham was once asked who had more influence in their relationship, Pickering or himself. Whittingham replied, "When you tell me which half of a pair of scissors is the more useful, I will answer your question." Notice the title page. This is typical of William Pickering. The title is large, symmetrical, and easy to read. It is in harmony with Byrne's emphasis on the colored diagrams. Then notice the four-line cribble or decorated initial that starts each proposition. These initials were engraved by Mary Byfield of the Chiswick Press. They were based on original early 16th century woodcuts. These initials were first engraved by Byfield in 1843 in Pickering and Whittingham's edition of Henry Shaw's Alphabet, Numbers, and Devices of the Middle Ages, and were used again in the 1845 edition. Mary Byfield also engraved most of the ornamentations for the Chiswick Press. It should be noted that Byrne's Euclid uses the Caslon type. Each proposition in the book uses Caslon italics, while the explanations are in Caslon Roman type. One of the characteristics of Caslon is that it uses the medial or long S, which is often confused with the letter F. Byrne's Euclid contains a dedication to Earl Fitzwilliam. This would have been Charles William Wentworth Fitzwilliam, who was a peer of both Ireland and Great Britain. He opposed the corn laws which kept corn prices artificially high, and he supported using government resources to aid the Irish people during the period of the Great Hunger. Charles Whittingham used the stand-up press, which was an iron rather than wooden press. This allowed for the use of extremely fine color printing. Successive wooden blocks had to be used for each separate color, such so that it was very expensive to produce and required exact registration on the paper. Byrne's Euclid cost £737 in printing costs alone. There would have also been fees for binding and for advertising the book. Although 1,000 copies were printed, only 118 were sold. The price for this book was 21 shillings, or the equivalent of 1 guinea. This was extremely expensive for a textbook. Byrne refused to pay for the Euclid, probably because he was in financial trouble and was involved in debtor's court, and he had given up the copyright to the Euclid. Because of this reason, Whittingham refused to turn over 1,000 copies of the Calculus of Form that Whittingham had printed up for Byrne, but which had not been paid for. Many people find Byrne's Euclid so compelling because it reminds them of the Gestalt art movement, which was created 70 years later by Theo van Doesburg. Gestalt was a Dutch art movement that reduced art to geometric form, line, and color. Its most celebrated painter was Piet Mondrian, but other painters have also used similar shapes, such as Vilmos Huszar, Kazimir Malevich, Jean Hans Arp, Henri Matisse, and Vasily Kandinsky.